Greetings, I'm Dr. Nick Mather, and welcome to my presentation, An Introduction to Categorical Syllogisms. To explain categorical syllogisms, I'm going to use the example provided in our textbook, A Concise Introduction to Logic by Patrick Hurley, the 9th edition. A categorical syllogism is a syllogism made up entirely of categorical statements. As a reminder, a syllogism is an argument that has two premises and a conclusion. So here is an example. All soldiers are patriots. No traitors are patriots. Therefore, no traitors are soldiers. Every categorical syllogism is made up of three terms: the major term, the minor term, and the middle term. Let's look at the major term first. The major term of a categorical syllogism is always the predicate term of the conclusion. The minor term of a categorical syllogism is always the subject term of the conclusion. The middle term is going to be the term that appears in both premises but does not appear in the conclusion. Every categorical syllogism must also be placed into standard form. This syllogism is already in standard form. I will show you shortly how to place a syllogism into standard form, but it is best to begin with one that is already in standard form. A standard form categorical syllogism is one where the premise that has the major term in it is always listed first. The premise that has the minor term in it is always listed second, and then, of course, you have your conclusion. Because the first premise always has the major term in it, it is referred to as the major premise. The second premise that has the minor term in it is always referred to as the minor premise. So a standard form categorical syllogism always has the form of major premise, minor premise, conclusion. Every categorical syllogism also has a mood and figure. Determining the mood is very easy. Once your syllogism is in standard form, you simply identify the letter names of each statement. So in this example, all soldiers are patriots is an A statement, no traitors are patriots is an E statement, and no traitors are soldiers is also an E statement. So the mood of the categorical syllogism is A, E, E. Once you have the mood, you then have to determine the figure. There are four possible figures, and these are based on the placement of the middle terms. Here's the chart, and you can also find this on page 239 of your textbook. So the figure of this syllogism is figure 2. So that gives us a mood and figure of A, E, E, figure 2. Once you have the mood and figure of your syllogism, you can determine whether your syllogism is valid or invalid. You do this by consulting two charts, which are both on page 240 of your textbook. The first chart is this one, the unconditionally valid form chart. If the syllogism appears on here, then it is valid. So what you want to do, since our mood and figure here is AEE figure 2, you want to look in the column that is headed by figure 2. If you see the mood in there, AEE, then it is a valid syllogism. So this syllogism with mood and figure AEE2 is valid. It is unconditionally valid. Now, if you could not find your mood and figure on the unconditionally valid form chart, you would consult the conditionally valid form chart. Now, I'll explain this in greater detail in another lecture, But for now, if you find the syllogism on here, you would just say it is conditionally valid. If your mood and figure is not on either chart, then the syllogism is invalid. Now let's work with a categorical syllogism, beginning with placing it into standard form. So imagine that you have been given this syllogism. Some college students are persons currently employed at fast food restaurants. So all persons currently employed at fast food restaurants are persons interested in high-paying jobs, since all college students are persons interested in high-paying jobs. The first thing you always have to do is identify the conclusion. There will almost always be identifier words here to help you. So for example, in this one, we have two identifier terms. We have so, which is a conclusion identifier, and we have since, which is a premise identifier. So we can be certain that our conclusion is all persons currently employed at fast food restaurants are persons interested in high-paying jobs. So that's our conclusion. Once we have identified the conclusion, that will give us our major term and our minor term. Remember, the major term is always the predicate term of the conclusion. So the premise that has the major term in it will get listed first. The minor term is always the subject term of the conclusion. So the second premise, the minor premise, will be the one that has that term in it. So you have to reorganize these a little bit, but when you do so, this is what you'll get. All college students are persons interested in high-paying jobs. Some college students are persons currently employed at fast food restaurants. So all persons currently employed at fast food restaurants are persons interested in high-paying jobs. Once the syllogism is in standard form, we can then determine the mood and figure. The mood here is going to be A, I, A, and the figure is going to be figure 3. Once we have our mood and figure, AIA figure 3, we can then check the two charts. We'll begin with the unconditionally valid chart. If we look under the column for figure 3, we see that AIA is not there. If we then look at the conditionally valid chart, again looking under the column for figure 3, we see that AIA is not there. Since this does not appear on either chart, the syllogism is invalid. There's one last thing I would like to show you. In your homework, you will be asked to reconstruct some syllogistic forms. So you will be given a mood and figure, for example, AOE4, and asked to reconstruct this. Now this is really easy. And here's how you do it. You write out each categorical statement, but leave blanks for your terms. So your first statement, since it's an A statement, will be all blank are blank. Your second premise, since it's an O statement, will be some blank are not blank. And your conclusion is an E statement, so that will be no blank are blank. Then all you do is you look at your 4 figures, and this is figure 4, and you fill in the blanks.